Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church live stream worship service. I am Reverend Alexa and my pronouns are she and her. Accotink UU Church is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world through our actions to bring about justice and by honoring the web of nature of which we are all a part. All are welcome here. No matter whom you love, no matter your identity or heritage, no matter your beliefs or background, no matter your means or abilities, you are welcome here in this religious community. All are also welcome to share in time for conversation and connection after worship. Simply stay in the Zoom meeting and join.
If you are new to Accotink and would like to talk more about this church, please be sure to reach out to me, our minister, Reverend Pippin, or a member of the board. Contact information is posted on our website at www.accotinkuu.org. On our website, you can check the online order of service on the worship section of our webpage. While you're on the website, please be sure to check our events page for upcoming virtual gatherings and other news. I now invite you to close your other windows or apps and devices, take a deep breath, and center yourself for worship.
Thank you. Today's service is brought to you by the Pastoral Care Team. And in many religious education classes, they light the chalice with words such as these. This is the church of the loving heart. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the flaming chalice that guides us in our search for truth in good times and bad times together. They come to mind, these words come to mind today because, of course, the Pastoral Care Team is indeed your pastoral care team. In good times and in bad times together. I am honored to serve with them as your pastoral care minister. I am honored that they asked me to participate in today's service with them.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Tomasco, and I'm happy to be part of Accotink's Pastoral Care Team. Today, I would like to share with you a poem written by our own Reverend Pippin. She included it in a blog post in June of 2020, and it's called The Simple Hook. It's not the building, it's not the ritual, it's not the membership, it's not the thing you worry about. Really, it's not. It's how you love. That's the only church. It's that simple. You can't get off the hook on this one.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ken Heller, and I'm a member of the Pastoral Care Team. There is no greater love. The concept of beloved community was first mentioned in the early 20th century by the philosopher-theologian Josiah Royce, who founded the Fellowship of Reconciliation. Dr. Martin Luther King, who happened to also be a member of the Fellowship of Reconciliation, he popularized this concept and added deeper meaning. Beloved community is a vision where all people can share in the wealth of the earth. Poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated. All forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. Dr. King spent much of his life as an advocate for nonviolent approaches to resolving conflict. He said in his sermons that the aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of the beloved community. Now, depending on who you talk to, the Greeks used up to 7 different words to describe love. This tells me there are important distinctions in how we can understand love. Dr. King himself focused on 3 types of love in his many speeches and writings, where he often talked about creating a beloved community. These 3 are, first is eros, which can be thought of as romantic or passionate love. philia, which can be found in intimate and authentic friendships, and agape, which is an empathetic or universal love. He described agape as understanding, redeeming goodwill for all, an overflowing love which is purely spontaneous, unmotivated, groundless, and creative, the love of God operating in the human heart. Agape does not discriminate between worthy and unworthy people. It involves loving others for their sakes and makes no distinction between friend or enemy. Agape is love seeking to preserve and create community. Dr. King viewed agape love as the core value in seeking to establish a beloved community. I believe that this is where we should focus in working towards our own beloved community. One manifestation of agape at Accotink is pastoral care. This does not just apply to our pastoral care team, but rather it applies to all of us. This is what we do when we reach out to each other and spend time deeply listening or otherwise offering assistance. By doing so, we acknowledge the worth and dignity of each of us, which helps to build our beloved community. Everyone needs help and support at some time in their life. Indeed, we're all dealing with so many crises currently: COVID, economic stresses, climate change, political violence, and I could go on. My first experience with pastoral care at AUUC was when our son was just born, and we were looking for a new church. Our son was born early and was in the NICU ward for 6 weeks, and we were beside ourselves. We had no family close by. We spent every day at the hospital and came home really tired. It still gets emotional. During this time, Bob Weston saw us at church and asked about our circumstances. The next thing I knew was that we were having home-cooked dinners delivered to our front door. Everything was included, and this lasted for several weeks. All we had to do was unpack everything and sit down and eat. I never experienced this before. In fact, no one at Accotink knew us at the time. This was a major influence for us in joining the church. I got to say, listening and reaching out to others in the church community is all a part of pastoral care. There is no greater love.
I am speaking Mark Roman's words today as he is recovering from eye surgery. And of course, we are taking care of him. There is no greater love. Early in each service, as in this one today, welcoming statements are made that include all are welcome here, and ours is a welcome and inclusive community. Those statements are not just words standing alone. They rest upon a set of formally stated UU principles that are incorporated in the bylaws at AUUC. Those principles give support to diversity in beliefs and practices. The AUUC bylaws also contain a congregational commitment to, quote, covenant with one another to build a joyful community that sustains us in our search for truth and meaning, and includes a list of ways in which we aspire to achieve that goal. For my part today, in today's service, I will provide a brief overview of these principles and covenants that are part of the AUUC bylaws. By way of introduction to this overview, many of you may be aware that Reverend Pippin has a blog on our church website, in which each month she explores a topic of interest. Early in her tenure, she explored the meaning of belonging. And I would like you to take a look at her October 2019 blog entry, in which she explains how together we are going along on a journey toward our longing. Emphasizing the goal is to foster an open and nurturing community of faith, sharing common values while honoring a diversity of beliefs. You may also recall that Reverend Alexa, remember I'm reading from Mark, gave a sermon a few weeks ago on the 7 UU principles and how they relate to a proposed 8th principle. Interestingly, her presentation arose from our annual fundraising auction chosen by the winning bidder for a chance to select a sermon topic. Those 7 established UU principles depict again here serve as guides in building our beloved community. Please take a minute to read through them and note the values that they embody. In her sermon, Reverend Alexa noted that as inviting and inclusive as these statements are, the UU Church has not always lived out these principles in ways that acknowledged and directly addressed the possibility of systemic, perhaps unconscious biases that can be obstacles to building a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. To that end, the UU Association has proposed an 8th principle to be added to these 7, addressing this issue. The proposed 8th principle reads, we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. As I noted earlier, in addition to these guiding principles, we as a congregation have agreed in our bylaws to covenant with one another as depicted on this slide. Here again, please take a minute to read it through and note the values that they embody, including acceptance, respect, mutual support, honest communication, and justice, and equity. I would note that the UUA principles and the AUUC covenants, while carefully crafted and intended to be enduring, are not chiseled in granite. They are subject to evolution and change and may be called for in our evolving community and world. The proposed 8th principle is an example of that evolutionary process. As you read through these principles and covenants, you may have appreciated how many of them are central to the concept of love that Ken just gave, agape, and pastoral care within our beloved community, as described earlier, embodying the ideals of acceptance, respect, mutual support, and common purpose. May all of our AUUC members, friends, and visitors find comfort and value in these principles and covenants. There is no greater love.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, Reverend Alexa, for Mark. I'm Connie Diamant, a member of the Pastoral Care Team. There is no greater love. How do we, as a beloved community, show no greater love to each other than an extended hand of compassion and caring? The Pastoral Care Team was created nearly 20 years ago now to be the embodiment of this sentiment. It is a physical presence to the congregation that we, as a beloved community, care for each other in both the good times and the bad. We nourish each other with meals. We call each other to check in when we haven't seen or heard from someone. We write notes to each other each week to acknowledge that those landmark events in our lives have been heard. And I can tell you that it brings a smile to my face each time Jim and I receive one of those cards congratulating us on yet another grandchild or two. And I am touched by the caring words when something has gone wrong in our lives. This is all part of the philosophy of the beloved community, agape. We care for each other always with no greater love. The idea of pastoral care offered by congregants comes from the metaphor of shepherds tending their sheep. As a wool enthusiast, I have observed shepherds in many countries, and this imagery rings true. Shepherds watch over their flock from a distance. For the most part, the flock freely grazes on the grass in peace, but the shepherd is there if there's trouble and tends to the individual animal, giving it care. The shepherd is there to midwife the birth of a lamb. The shepherd is there with their dogs to usher the flock into a barn for safety. The shepherd's role is quiet and in the background, there to help only when needed with no greater love. The modern day expression of this metaphor are the groups within religious communities referred to as pastoral care teams. These people are members of the community, sometimes chosen by the clergy and sometimes self-identified as extensions of the religious leader's role to give spiritual care to congregants. While in some religious contexts, lay pastoral caregivers act as spiritual guides, often pastoral caregivers are the ones to go to when support is needed, resources identified, or simply to share a joy or a sorrow. Like many modern congregations, we too have a pastoral care team. Our mission is to provide support, make connections to resources, and provide listening ears to all of you out there. We have volunteered for this responsibility, and we do it with the joy of knowing that we are helping to support our beloved community. We act as the shepherd providing assistance when we are needed. There is no greater love. These words hold a special meaning in the context of the beloved community and in the context of our beloved AUUC community. We accept each other as we are, and we care for each other as we need, unconditionally. Our beloved community may be small, but we are mighty. For the past 40 years, AUUC members have created and sustained a beloved community of caring, compassionate individuals. No one asks for commendation for doing the right thing and being there for each other. As we all know, our country is at a critical juncture in its history. We all remember the armed insurrection at the Capitol, a sight I never thought I would ever see. We as a nation are divided along too many lines to list. So how do we, a small congregation of like-minded people, help the healing process? We think locally and hope it extends globally. We build the beloved community by all continuing to engage in pastoral care for one another. We build the beloved community here and now by caring for each other each and every day. We build the beloved community by being shepherds and being there for each other unconditionally and unequivocally. We ask you to continue with us, the Pastoral Care Team, in this true love expression of our beloved community. As we close today later on with the David Bumbaugh reading, listen to the words we say. Behind all our differences and diversity, there is a unity which makes us one and binds us together. There is no greater love. Thank you. Though we will extinguish our chalice flame, we carry with us what we kindled, the light of inspiration, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly into the world.
The traditional community blessing here is by David Bumbaugh. Connie alluded to it earlier. These words call us into beloved community and as such are important and inspirational to many of you. The Pastoral Care Team wanted to share them with you today with intention and care. Please join them and me in reciting. The words have been put in the chat.
This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind of all of our differences and beneath our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together, in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
The benediction today is based on the words of Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Out of this comes the beloved community and community support upon which we all rely. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Blessed be, Ashe, and Amen.